Ready to hear all about how a mom of two was able to score not only a luxury couples getaway, but also an extended family trip for 12 people, all within her first year of getting into points and miles? Keep listening to hear how she did it and how much she saved. Welcome to Points Talk with the Travel Mom Squad. We are three moms who've discovered how to leverage credit card welcome offers to get hundreds of thousands of dollars of travel expenses for nearly free. We've used credit card points and miles to take vacations to places like Hawaii, Paris, Greece, Maldives, Japan, and so much more. And the best part, we each still have 800 plus credit scores. Imagine being able to take the vacation of your dreams for nearly free. It's totally possible, and we're here to show you how. Hey, I'm Alex.
And I'm Pam, Alex's mom.
And I'm Jess. Let's talk points. Today, we have a very special guest joining us. Stephanie Price is a mom of two. She has a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and she has been a student of ours for almost 2 years now. We know you often hear us talk about all the amazing trips that we take on points and miles, but we thought it would be fun to hear from someone who was brand new to the points and miles game not all that long ago. Thank you so much for joining us today, Stephanie. We are so excited to have you here. You are our first student that we've had on the podcast, so very excited.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so before we jump into a couple of amazing trips that you've been able to take on points and miles, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you discovered points and miles, how you got started and all that?
Okay, awesome. Well, I originally heard about the points and miles game probably about 10 years ago. I was in college. I live in North Carolina now, but I grew up in Colorado. And so I would fly home quite a bit to see my family. And at that time, kind of YouTube sort of videos were out about using points and miles. So I thought I would get a Delta card. That was my first card. And it was their platinum card. And so I saved all of my miles and put all of my spend on one card for 10 years. And finally got to redeem it for 2 first-class tickets from Kauai back to Wilmington, North Carolina. And that was about an 18-hour flight or so. So I felt like it was a really good redemption.
But it took you 10 years to get that?
Yeah, 10 really long years.
So you were doing what Pam refers to as the slow burn, where you just have the one credit card. I think Pam did that. I did that. I had a United card. I think Pam had a United card also. Yeah, so that's a little bit of the slow burn points and miles action right there.
Yes, it was. But I thought I was doing really well just because I didn't really understand getting more cards. And I saved it for a really good time. So I, like Pam, I didn't use it for just an easy flight. I was like, I'm going to save these when my husband and I go someplace really cool. And I loved Kauai.
So I'm sure that your friends too, or your family, people around you are like, what? You got first class tickets for free to Hawaii? Or, like you hardly paid for those, even when you were doing it, the slow burn way was probably still really impressive to people, because I don't know, even doing this, I don't know a ton of people that are flying for so cheap in first class to Hawaii. So you were doing great. And like we all said, that's how we all started too, was just that one credit card and taking it slow. And it was always really exciting when you'd get that flight for free, even if it took you a while.
Oh, I lived off of that high for booking that ticket for several weeks because I thought it was so cool. And our planes switched when we were in Seattle. So we left really early in the morning from Seattle, but they got us into a bigger plane. So I actually got those lie flat first class seats. And it was the best 6 hours of sleep I had because I was so tired. And I thought, man, this is so cool.
That's awesome.
It was so fun. And when we got back, I thought going to Hawaii was like a once in a lifetime thing because it is really far from the East Coast. At that time, my children were really young and I could not imagine going that far until they were older. And then Jess, the magical Jess, pops up on my Instagram and was talking about the hotel that we had just stayed at, because we had stayed at the Grand Hyatt Kauai. We had been there for 8 days and I loved it. It was like one of the best trips I had ever had. And she said something like she had gone for under $100 and went multiple times a year. And At first, I was like, I don't know about this. This sounds crazy. But I just followed her immediately and started following along, and then realized that there was so much more to points and miles.
That's awesome. All right. So you start following Made Possible by Points. And then I know that you were like one of the first people to sign up for Award Travel Academy when we launched that course. And then when we launched Award Travel Academy Next Level, you were one of the first students to invest in Next Level also. So I guess what made you decide? I mean, it sounds like even though you were doing the slow burn method, you sort of understood maybe the basics of, charging things to a credit card, paying them off. So what made you decide like, okay, this is worth investing in? I don't, I want to use a course to learn this versus trying to learn it all on my own.
So I had been following Jess at that time for about 4 months and knew something big was coming because she was just a really good promoter, and Chase was having a really good initial sign up bonus for the Chase Sapphire Preferred. And it was 80,000 sign up points. So I had decided that I was just going to try it. I would see where it goes. And, worst case scenario, I sign up for a couple credit cards and use the points. Like, no big deal.
I love that. Worst case scenario is I get some free points. I love it.
Yeah. And my husband was totally on board. And so that really helped too. So I signed up for the card on 5/19. I think it was the last day to sign up because I held off because I was so nervous. I wanted to do it, but I just didn't know how to figure out how to do it myself with my kids being so little, and I work full time. So I was nervous. And then the day that the course launched, I think it was the first thing I purchased that morning, and it was actually on that card. So that was the very first points and miles purchase that I made. And then from there, it spiraled out of control pretty quickly. I just went all in because I realized that you really could do so much with it. So I took the course in a matter of days. I just sat there and I watched it all, and I would go for walks and I would listen to it, and then I would rewatch it, and I just loved it. And by the time I was done with the course through a couple of times, I had actually already signed up for another card because I was like, okay, this is a good offer. I can do this too. And realizing how easy it was to hit the minimum spend. So it was pretty exciting.
And I'm like totally geeking out. I'm like, oh my gosh, her first purchase on her first Chase Sapphire Preferred was our course. Like, that's so
I
cool.
know. I was thinking the same thing. And, it's just really fun to hear somebody like, because we see people make a purchase, or we might get like a testimonial, but to like hear, and we can see Stephanie. So to hear somebody talk about the course and be like, oh, I listened to it as I'm like doing these things, and it's like, oh, this is so cool. Like, this is real. Like, real people are investing in this course that we've created. And it's really cool as a creator to kind of hear that side of it from somebody else.
And I like how you pointed out that you kind of listened on your own time. You would go on a walks and you'd listen, or you'd listen again, because that was like when we created this, we're two busy moms and a busy grandma, and we don't have time to be going to live trainings. We kind of have to do things by our own schedule. So that was really important to us, that we have these video lessons and audio tutorials that people can just watch on their own time, like when their kids are in bed or in the morning before their kids wake up. Or I have invested in courses in the past, and that was really important to me to be able to do it on my own time. So, and then Next Level came out. And so were you automatically just like, okay, I'm going to purchase Next Level, of course?
Yes. And I was I feel like you guys, I wasn't booking a trip on vacation, but I was on vacation. I was in Jekyll Island, Georgia, and in the bathroom late at night. And I was trying to put my card in because, of course, I had to get more points on that too. That was another card I had just opened and got it. And I could hardly wait to get home to watch it. And the whole way to and from Jekyll Island, it's about a 7-hour drive. We listened to the podcast. My husband and I listened to the podcast, the Disneyland one and the Maldives and just the different ones. And he was like, oh, all into it. So we're a points and miles household now.
I love that. That's so awesome.
That is so funny.
So what did you think about the courses? I know you did the first course and then you did the Next Level. What were your thoughts?
So the initial course is awesome for, I think, anybody. So you could know absolutely nothing about credit cards or points or transfer partners. You could know absolutely nothing and could be successful with the Travel Academy because it is broken down so well and it just walks you through step by step. Nothing is confusing, but if you do get stuck, you can rewatch it and you can actually do things as you're watching it. So the first trip I ever booked on points was to Maine, and I learned some hard lessons, but I had to transfer my points from Chase to our Hyatt account. And the Hyatt account is actually in my husband's name. And so I added him as a user to my card because I didn't know we could transfer points between Chase at first. So I made a couple errors, which he couldn't sign up for the card for a while. But it was nice to be able to see as I was doing it. I watched it like 3 or 4 times because I didn't want to do it wrong and lose my points. So I loved that about the first course. And I got a lot of good things from it. And I like to laugh that points and miles is like my Roman Empire because I'm constantly thinking about it. And the girl I work with, we talk about it because I've got her into it, and we just are constantly trying to faux book court class or trips. And it's just, I don't know, it's so fun.
I think we can all relate to that because I think, the 3 of us, I mean, it's our job. And so, of course, we're thinking about it a lot. But even when we're not working on content and things for Travel Mom Squad, we're texting about, where should I go next? Did you see this deal here? And so it's a lot of the discussions that we have even outside of work.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then next level, I feel like just makes it, I feel like it almost is like taking you from the very basics, which are so important, and you need to know how to do the basics. You can't take next level if you don't already have the basics, I don't think, because it would be confusing. But it takes you into the major leagues to where you're learning about points from all different ways, like not just sign up bonuses and how referral bonuses work and shopping portals and all of those wonderful things, but also how in depth you guys go with each of the different banks. And I've learned that one helped me be a savvier points and miles user because my points go further now since I understand how all that works.
That's awesome.
How long ago did you sign up for the first card? How long have you been in this game?
It will be 2 years in May.
Okay. Well, let's get to the fun stuff then. We want to hear about some of the trips that you've taken on points and miles. And first of all, tell us about the recent trip that you took with your spouse to Aruba. Which points and miles did you use for your flights? How many? Where did you stay? Tell us it all.
Okay, so this I felt like was my first really big redemption. Like I said, we had gone to Maine, but basically I just hacked the hotel, which I thought was so cool because we got a free hotel and then we paid for our flights and stuff. But because of all the sign up bonuses, my bank of points has gone from 160,000 to almost 2.8 million in 2 years. It's crazy. So it's like 16 times what it was, and I did it in 2 years versus 10.
She's on the Pam track. She is on the Pam track.
I had the bug bad.
Well, I am so impressed.
So our first big trip was to Aruba, and getting there, we flew out of Charlotte, North Carolina. So my in-laws live on the western part of the state, which is really close to Charlotte. So we left our kids there, and we flew out of Charlotte with Delta, and we booked 2 flights. There was a connection flight through Atlanta, and it was 35,000 points for both of us. And then I only spent $13 on taxes and fees. Because I had the platinum card with Delta at the time, I got a 15% point decrease too. So I thought that was a great way over there. Those were just economy tickets, but it's not a very long flight, about 4 hours. So I thought it was real easy.
Yeah, that's a steal with Delta. So
yeah,
that's a really good redemption.
Thanks. I feel so thankful that you're so proud of me. It makes me laugh.
Well,
Like I'm a good student.
so proud of you, Steph.
Thank you. And then on the way home, we flew American, but I booked it through British Airways. So I think that's called Avios. And I transferred those points to British Airways, I think from American Express, I think is how I did it. And they were 22,000 points for both of us. And it was a direct flight. So it went directly from Aruba back into Charlotte. And that was cool because I love direct flights. And with that one, we had to pay a little bit more in taxes. We paid $52 in taxes. Plus, we had to pay for our bags. And I also upgraded our seats. But because of Next Level, I knew that my American Express Platinum had a airline credit that's $200. So I used that to basically erase our bag fees and get better seats. So I didn't end up out of pocket at all except for the taxes, which was under $100. So super cool.
That's so good. Way to use those benefits. That's another thing because a lot of people, they don't even realize their credit card has a benefit like that.
Oh, yeah.
So that is awesome. And those are really good prices on those flights. So good.
And I've actually noticed because in my spare time, I'm faux booking flights too, like for practice. And for anyone who is looking for a positioning flight or is in the area, Charlotte has really good flights to the Caribbean. A lot of them are direct and most of them are for similar redemptions. In July, we're flying to Turks and Caicos and the round trip flight was 22,000 points booked through Qantas over to American Airlines. And I couldn't believe they were round trip.
That's
you
so
are
good.
teaching me.
You're going to take over. You're going to like surpass us. Like Next Level is going to be like put you above us.
Yeah. You know what? Turks and Caicos is one of my favorite places to go to. I've only been there once, been scheming about how to get back there. And I am going to take your tip and I am going to position to Charlotte and I'm taking that flight. So thank you, Stephanie. I'm so glad we had you on today.
Oh, good. I can't wait to hear about it.
Give her your dates because she has 21 grandchildren. So she'll just watch your kids too. I mean, what's two more?
What's two more? Grandma Pam.
Exactly. On our last
Last
podcast,
week's episode.
the one that we just recorded, we talked about how if you take children with you traveling, you get so many perks and people are so nice to you. So maybe just take your kids with me.
There you go.
So Aruba is really a great place to go to. I've been there. I didn't stay at the time. I stayed at some Marriott resorts. I was a Marriott girl in my past life. I'm now a Hyatt girl. So I want to hear about where you stayed because I think you stayed at our favorite brand on this trip. So tell us all about where you stayed and how many points and miles you had to use for your resort.
I did stay at a Hyatt and I am a Hyatt girl now too. I've only stayed at like 4 Hyatts in my whole life, but they've all been pretty nice. And I'm so in love with Hyatt. I can't wait to go to more places. But we stayed at the Hyatt Regency in Aruba, which is on Palm Beach. And Palm Beach is the beach that has like all of the hotels. So the Ritz-Carlton's right there. There's a couple other Marriott's, the Hilton. All of the hotels are right next to each other. And at the time I booked before the last devaluation. This was like a fear of missing out booking trip.
We know how that goes.
So our my husband and I's anniversary is in the fall, so we always try to book a trip for us kind of in the fall. And when looking, I was like, "Oh, let's do Aruba in September." And that was about 6 months out because it was in March of when I booked it. And so we stayed for 4 nights and 5 days. And at the time it was 88,000 points. I think I only paid 1 peak night for that. And then the rest were off peak because much to my chagrin, I did not know that Aruba's hottest time of year is in September. So it was very, very hot and it's desert, but it was windy. So we weren't hot, but it was very hot.
So that was 88,000 Hyatt points total for
Yes,
the
and
4 nights.
See, and that is
That's
amazing because when I stayed in that Marriott hotel, I spent $50K a night. So it was $200K. And that was before they got rid of their chart. So it's a lot more now. So it just goes to show what a great deal Hyatt is.
Oh, for sure. And now the points are 25,000 off peak and 30,000 peak, but I think that's still totally worth the price. I would say that the Regency is very similar to the Grand Hyatt Kauai. It's got the black rock by all the pools. Their kid pool is large. It actually is kind of multi-level. They have a water slide and a floating volleyball court and a swim up like family bar. They have a adult only pool that's huge. It's like the whole length of the hotel, but kind of on the other side away from the noisiness of the kids. And then their beach is humongous. They probably have 100 like little tiki huts that you can put your chairs under, and the water is so calm. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful resort. And I think you could get club level there because I didn't book far enough out. They only had queen rooms at the time, but it was a beautiful room. They're newly renovated, so they're super clean, super like fresh looking, and they have a casino if people like to gamble. I think all of the hotels there probably do, and then a spa. But we just kind of hung out at the hotel and we scoped out all of the other hotels because I had a worry that I was like, well, what if the Ritz-Carlton's better? Like, should I use some of my American Express points and go? And I thought about it a couple times and looked at it because I was just not sure. And I'm so happy I didn't, because I would say that the Hyatt is by far the most new looking property, but also has the best pool situation. It was far and above any of the hotels that were around it.
So I know you said your husband was on board basically from the get-go with this, but when you brought him to Aruba and you're staying at the Hyatt for $0, were you both just like, wow, I can't believe this is real life?
Yeah, it was amazing. And he was like, let's go to more places. Like, where else can we go?
You're like, lucky for you, I have 2 million points.
Right.
That's how you get your player two on board.
Exactly.
So I know you went as a couple, but what do you think about the Hyatt Regency Aruba for families? Is it only for couples, or do you think it would be, would you go back and take your kids?
I think that you could do either. I think it's great for couples because the couples pool is secluded and can be quiet. A lot of the activities on the island are good for adults. Like, we did an ATV tour all the way around the island. Aruba's very small, so it didn't take us long to do that. And we also went scuba diving. So those are more adult activities, but my kids would have loved the hotel, especially because there's absolutely no waves in the water on the beach that it's on. And a lot of the beaches in Aruba are kind of that way because the side of the island where it's really rough, they don't live there. It's uninhabited. So it's just natural area that you can go visit or hike on, but you can't like stay there. So you wouldn't be on that water anyway. The only worry I would have is the sun, because it was so hot and we were so close to the equator. That was my first time really experiencing equator heat. So I don't know if that's probably pretty common across the equator, but we put sunscreen on a lot and I saw a lot of really red people. So I would worry about my kids getting sunburned. But if you were diligent, they would have an absolute blast just staying at the hotel or going into town and shopping. Where the Hyatt is, there's a little shopping mall behind it that has really good shopping and lots of food. You don't have to leave the hotel or go anywhere in Aruba. You have everything right there within like a mile.
That's awesome. I actually had the Hyatt Regency Aruba booked for the summer of 2020, and we all know how that turned out.
Yeah.
So I still haven't managed to make my way back there, but it's on my list.
It's really awesome. And we also rented a car. I feel like I stole the rental car. I've never seen one this cheap. It was only $213 for the whole time. When I was picking it up, the lady hadn't made a car rental and they were like, oh, it's going to be $2,000 for a few days. And I was like, dang, I'm really glad I got it ahead of time. It was way different prices.
Oh, wow.
But it wasn't necessary because once we got there, I mean, we did go to the other beaches. And like I said, the island's really small. So we did some exploring on our own. But after we got there, we figured out that every activity that you can do, they will pick you up because all of the hotels are right there together. They just have these big open kind of like safari trucks basically, and they just go from hotel to hotel and pick you up and then you go to your activity. So you could do it definitely without a car.
Yeah, when I went, we didn't have a car. My friend and I went. We actually were in 2 different locations. I hotel hopped, surprisingly, and we didn't need a car. So you don't need a car, but if you don't want to get one, you can do without it.
Yeah. If you do get one, don't get it ahead of time so you don't spend $2,000.
Right? Yeah. And there are no stoplights in Aruba. So it's just roundabouts. So I didn't drive. I made my husband drive, but it was a little unnerving sometimes because nobody ever has to stop because it's just little roundabouts and they're a little confusing, but we got it by the end.
Okay, so we know you've also used points and miles to take some family vacations. So do you want to tell us about one of your favorites?
Yes. I haven't done a whole lot of traveling with my kids. They are young, but when my daughter was 16 months old, I took her. I'm originally from Colorado, so we went back to Colorado with her, and she was only 16 months old and she didn't sleep, and then I didn't sleep. And so I was like, I'm not doing this until they're older because I was very traumatizing for me.
No, I've been there. I know what you
Yeah.
mean.
So now that they're older, we have gone back to Colorado and we booked all of our flights on points and miles. We flew American and we actually booked these through a bank portal because we had some points in a bank portal and we're flying from pretty small airports. So I was pretty excited about the redemption because we skied. And so we went from Wilmington, which is a small airport with a connection in Dallas, and then on to Vail. And then our way home, we went from Colorado Springs back to Wilmington. So they were pretty small and they let us book it kind of a multi-way, which I'd never done before. And we spent 212,000 points, or it was about 53,000 points for each of us. And the cash price for the tickets were $1,300 a piece. So
Whoa.
it was a huge saving.
Wow, yeah.
Okay.
So did you go was it peak season then for skiing?
It was. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and
So
flying into those small airports or the smaller airports can sometimes be more expensive. So I feel like, yeah, getting those for 53,000 points instead of $1,300 is really good.
yeah, it was so good. And it was even, I toyed going with going to Denver, but then when you go to Denver, then you have to drive into the mountains. And so Vail was just so much more convenient because we went to Breckenridge and they didn't have to be in the car quite as long. So we paid $98 in taxes for our round trip tickets.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that sure beats $1,300 for each ticket. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So, and then where did you guys stay when you went to Colorado?
So for the first leg, we were in Breckenridge and I had never booked through this, but we booked through Marriott with their homes and villas, which is kind of like their Airbnb program, because we actually had family who came from North Carolina too, but they actually flew to Salt Lake because we have family in Salt Lake, and they then drove and met us there. So there were 12 of us staying in a ski condo, and I wanted to be spoiled. So I didn't just want any ski condo. I wanted a ski in, ski out condo. So it was easier with the kids, and we were able to book it. We booked it. Yes, right. Easy.
Yeah.
Don't have to drive the kids with the
Yeah.
skis and all of that stuff. So it was a 5-bedroom ski in, ski out condo. And it cost us 612,000 Marriott points. And we pulled them together from several different places. That was for 4 nights and 5 days. And I think it came out to about 54,000 per person since there were so many of us. I had some Marriott points. And then one nice thing about Marriott is they will let you send them to each other. So my brother and sister-in-law sent us some points. You can send 100,000 points to one person 5 times a year, basically. So we pulled points that way. And then the rest of the points I transferred from Chase. I think it was like 238,000 because there was a transfer bonus. So I was like, okay, this is a good time to do this because normally I don't want my Chase points to go to Marriott, but they had a transfer bonus. They went a little further and I was excited. But when I transferred them, I also learned that Marriott only lets you leave your transfer points in there for a year. So I would never want to just move them over to Marriott because of a transfer bonus if I didn't have an intention to use them, because
Yeah, that's
be
good
super
to know.
bummed.
I didn't even know that. So
Yeah.
you're teaching us. But that is really cool because I love that you're sharing this because I've never done this. None of us have booked a Marriott homes and villas before. And that is really neat how you were able to pull points from your different family members So it's not like, oh, I had to earn 612,000. It's like, oh, this person transferred 100,000. This person transferred 100,000. And so everyone was able to chip in. So like you said, 54,000 per person per night. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it was awesome. I loved that we could do that. And the condo would have been $8,500 for the stay. And one thing that you can do is the more points that you use when you're trying to book one of those, they will just eat away the fees. So the fees were about $1,300 for the cleaning and, all the other fees that are associated with booking up something like that. So we did enough to only have to pay $300. And I felt like that was reasonable for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure everybody was really happy. They're like, oh, wait, we get to stay in this amazing place and we pay $300 for it?
Yeah.
They're like, Stephanie, can you plan all our trips?
Yes. And I would too. If anybody, I love planning trips. So, and we also got to use another Amex perk on there because it's kind of like one of their little coupons where you spend so much money and they give you money back. They had one for Vail Resort. So we were able to get our $200 back on our lift tickets, which was helpful because those are pretty expensive. And they were on 2 different platinum cards. So I just booked them using 2 different cards.
We love our Amex offers.
And that is a really good one. To get $200 back is amazing.
And then to finish our stay, we ended up at the Broadmoor Hotel, which is in Colorado Springs. I used to live in Manitou Springs, which is just west of there. That's where I grew up. And so I worked at the Broadmoor for several summers, and it was really fun to go and be someone staying there. We didn't hack it. It was a business trip for my husband. He had a education seminar there. So we were like the tag-alongs, but it was really fun and nice to be able to show my kids like where I lived and all of these fun things. So it was cool that we were able to add to our vacation in a way that we wouldn't have been able to had there not been points and miles, because we did spend money elsewhere, which I think is important for people to understand, that it's not always nearly free. Like sometimes you do end up paying things, but you get to have other experiences because you have points and miles.
Yeah, completely agree with you.
Like spa treatments, Jess and Alex.
Right.
Yes.
And fluffy robes you can bring home.
Yes.
I've actually stayed at that hotel once because my sister, she lives near Colorado Springs. And one time we were there was it Christmas, Mom? Anyways, my brother-in-law booked like a couple nights there. And my husband and I, we didn't even have kids at this point. And he was like, you guys come and stay at the Broadmoor. I booked 2 rooms. And we're like, okay, sounds great. And we were like, oh, this place is so nice. We hadn't started, traveling on points yet. And we just thought it was so cool.
It is. It's a beautiful property. It's definitely a bucket list place if no one's ever been. It's a really neat experience because it's the height of luxury for sure.
Yeah. So what were your overall thoughts after, with this trip, a bigger trip with your kids and everybody?
It made me more excited to do more of these trips because it felt manageable. And I also didn't have to worry about if we had to cancel something. So my parents now live in Wilmington with us, but sometimes my dad can get sick. He's had some health battles. So knowing that I could cancel it and not really have any worry about getting money back, you can also change the flights pretty easily with points and stuff. It made me have better peace of mind knowing that I feel more covered booking with points than I do booking with money, which seems kind of backwards, but it's just a safer way to book travel and you have so much more flexibility.
I totally agree with you, especially with the parent with the health issues or just having kids in general, because they always seem to get sick at the worst possible times. We had a trip to Alila Ventana, Big Sur booked, and the day we were supposed to leave, our daughter tested positive for the flu. And so I was like, I don't want my mom to have to watch her. And so we were able to just cancel everything and get our points back. And there's so much peace of mind in that, with not having to worry about losing thousands of dollars.
That's so cool.
So it sounds like a really great trip, and one that I think that Colorado trip would have cost you over $10,000 out of pocket, and you got it for pennies on the dollar. It sounds like a fraction of what you would have otherwise paid. So that is amazing. Now we just have a couple more questions for you since we have you in the hot seat. So you are an A+ student, first of all, gold star.
Thank you. I need that.
Valedictorian worker class.
Oh,
Yeah,
thanks.
valedictorian.
I'm going to put that on my resume.
So I love that you gave us an example of like a romantic getaway with your spouse and then also like a full family trip. And it sounds like you're more confident traveling with your kids now after your traumatic experience with your daughter. But how do you think, like, if you had never stumbled upon our accounts or upon or Travel Academy or Next Level, like, how do you think your journey would have been different? Do you think you would still just be charging everything to that Delta card and like slowly racking up the points and miles? Would you be trying to teach everything to yourself and like not really understanding anything, or like just how would things be different, I guess?
I would like to think that I would have tried to figure this out on my own eventually at this point in time. Like my kids are just now getting to the point where they play together by themselves and I have moments where I'm just not completely consumed with motherhood. So I think maybe by now I might have started figuring it out. I know I would have made a lot more mistakes. I've made a few, nothing crazy or that would ruin anything, but I know I would have made a whole lot more and I wouldn't have had good direction because you guys do, when you are an ATA student, they do a credit card, what you should do. Like you tell them where you want to go and what your goals are, and they basically help you plan what you should do. So that really helped because that comes with the course. And I feel like probably we wouldn't be traveling as much just because it's not really feasible to do too much traveling. And this just makes it so much easier. Plus, I don't feel like any location is out of reach. My goal is to do a really big trip for our 10-year anniversary, which is in 2025. So we're getting close. So I'm more stacking my points currently than earning and burning because my hope is that we'll go to a Maldives property or to Bora Bora. I have a couple places I'm kind of eyeing, and I don't have any concern about those because most of them will be done on points and miles, and they'll be at amazing places, and we can fly business class. And it'll be hard choosing which business class to fly since you guys have flown them all. That's my biggest worry right now is what business class should I fly on our amazing anniversary
I
trip?
love that. That's when you know, like, things are going well in the points and miles world. If you're like, which one of these which business class should I do? That's when you know, like, okay, I've got this figured out now. That's my
Yeah.
concern of which flight to book, not how am I going to get these points?
Right. Oh, I know
Yeah.
how to get points.
Yeah, he's gonna surpass Pam soon. So we got to keep an eye out for Stephanie. And then, okay, well, that is awesome to hear. That's a very good problem to have. And I cannot wait to hear what you choose. We're going to need a reader success story from you once you return and once you decide which one of those you're going to book. I feel like you can't really go wrong with the Maldives or Bora Bora. So I'm excited to hear what ends up happening. And then last question is, what are some of your favorite features of ATA and or Next Level? Like what did you find most helpful, or just what are your favorite things about them?
So for sure with ATA, my favorite thing, which is the first course, is that it's so simple. It's learning like a whole new language. The points and miles arena is kind of a different language. And so through ATA, you're able to learn all of these different vocabulary words and you're able to like use them and put them into action and then just get your building blocks basically. And it gave me a whole lot of confidence because I went from knowing very little to booking. I think I've booked 6 trips and done it pretty easily with transferring the points and doing all of those things. So that is my favorite part. And then you can always go back. You guys are always adding content. Like there's some extra freebies that you put in there, like your credit card cheat sheets that tell you all of like how many points you get when you use it at like grocery stores and just different things. I have those things printed and I like look and I'm like, okay, which card am I supposed to use? And I just love that it's available because then my brain doesn't have to keep that information because it's there and I can always go back to it.
You just made Jess's day. Those are her babies. Those credit card cheat sheets, she put her heart and soul into those. So you just made her day.
I remember when I finished them, I was like cross-eyed because I've been doing this for a long time, but even just like hashing out all the details of all those different cards. So I sent them to Alex and I was like, I'm done. They're in your court now. Please double check all my work and make sure that it's right. But it was like, yes, those are my baby. I'm very proud of them.
They're super helpful. I have a copy at home, I have a copy in my car, and I have a copy at work so that I can check at all times so that I'm using, because I need to do that better. So not do as many like bonus spending sometimes, because I was really excited in the beginning. So I'm trying to earn more points by not signing up for as many, or at least that's what I tell myself.
That's what Jess tells herself too, actually.
Yeah.
It doesn't work out so well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to open as many cards this year. I'm not going to travel as much this year. And then that just backfires. So
Yeah.
I don't even try anymore.
And my favorite thing about Next Level, I have 3 favorite things about Next Level. I love that it teaches you how to earn points in different ways. Like I mentioned earlier, the referrals and how to like refer your spouse and refer friends, and which cards you can refer back and forth, and the ones that you kind of only get one time, like Capital One. Once you have a Capital One, you can't get a referral bonus from someone else that refers you, and things like that, just so that when I know that, then I can help someone else and I can say, oh, my friend can refer me, or I could refer someone else. And so that's always fun to get to do. Plus you get to learn about the shopping portals, which have helped a lot. Those can be kind of confusing, but I feel like Next Level really breaks those down. And I love that you go into transfer partners and how all of that works with the different areas, to where you don't just book, like my flights to the Caribbean weren't booked through American. It was better to do it through a transfer partner. And there are so many transfer partners that it can be really overwhelming to know which one goes where. And I feel like Next Level really helps break that down too. And then the monthly coaching calls, I love those.
Well, you just made Pam's day by saying that, because she loves the monthly group coaching calls and she loves leading them. And yeah, so that is Pam's baby.
Oh, well, Pam, it's wonderful. It makes me feel like I get to see you guys on Instagram and you have so many different personalities, but you guys are like friends. I feel like I know you, and the monthly coaching calls really helps with that too. So you get to see you guys, and you're just moms. You're just moms and you're just friends, and it's just fun.
Yeah, no, I love that too, because I feel like that's partly why we like to do those too, is it's really nice to go and see people's faces. And it's more human, more connection versus just, I'm going to post this reel and hope people watch it kind of thing, that where we can interact more with everybody. It's a lot of fun.
Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for being on. What you've done is so impressive. Not only have you, shared what you've done, you've taught today. And we didn't think that was going to happen when we got on tonight, but we've learned some new things. And that is what's wonderful about credit card points and miles, is that we can teach each other. We're so glad that you've been able to make these memories with your husband and your family, thanks to credit card points and miles. So if any of you are ready to travel for pennies on the dollar like Stephanie, just follow the links in the show notes to join us inside Award Travel Academy and Next Level. We can't wait to see where in the world points and miles take you.
Thanks so much for listening to Points Talk with the Travel Mom Squad. Make sure to hit the subscribe or follow button from wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode. Want to start jet setting even faster? Follow the links in the show notes to learn about everything we discussed in today's episode. And to stay connected and follow along, follow us on Instagram at Travel Mom Squad. We can't wait to see where in the world points and miles take you.